And from that time on top of his main constitutional influence, let's say he had another chronic constitutional influence, let's say Nux vomica, or valeriana, or something else. On top of that, there came this layer that has grounded on the other chronic constitution and affects the person. It's the agonitum layer. And the person tells you that I'm afraid, I have fears, I'm afraid of death. When did this started? 8 years ago. Were you okay before that? Yes, I didn't have any fears. I never had any fears, any intense fears. I was not a fearful person. Did something happen then that changed that situation? He tries to remember, and then he tells you that all fears started after that fright he had, that frightful event. He was shocked because all of a sudden a car came and nearly killed him. And he was so afraid that after that his life changed. He had this layer of agonitum. He still has many symptoms and characteristics of the underlying chronic constitution, but he has this layer on top that affects him. And when this patient comes to you and you give agonitum, although it is usually used as an under special condition temporary constitution and remedy, this layer goes off and the patient is free from his fears and has the underlying constitution influence him fully. So you see, this is an exception, but I have seen that in clinical practice. Most of the times it is a temporary under special conditions state that may go away by itself without any homeopathic treatment or other treatment. It may last for days, hours, days, weeks, and then go away. That is, again, the more chronic constitution that influenced the patient before the incident will prevail again. This is the essence of agonitum. Because agonitum is so temporary and so focused on the psychological sphere, the mental sphere, it only affects the body temporarily and creating only functional disorders and doesn't create pathological doesn't create pathological findings, pathology, advanced pathology, tissue changes and destruction and so on. It is a temporary, let's say, inflammation at the physical body, functional, creating functional symptoms, not laboratory findings or pathological, histological findings, destruction of tissues. And it is also used, as we have told before, in acute illness, acute physical illness, that is in common colds. And during these symptoms of the physical symptoms of a common cold, you will also find the intense psychological picture of the person. That is the essence of aconitum. You will read more at the classical miasmatic constitutional materia medica. You will read the details. My focus is to give you the essence. Let's go to Mancinella. Mancinella is a constitution under special conditions. We have a person that after many physical and psychological, especially psychological stressful factors, he may develop similar to aconitum acute picture, psychological picture, in the sense that while all psychological picture of aconitum is centered around fear of death, in Mancinella it is centered around the fear of insanity. In the same way that aconitum thinks that he is going to die now, in the same way Mancinella feels and believes and is sure that she is going to get crazy, to become insane, to lose it, to become psychotic now. He feels that he is so close to insanity that a click is enough to become insane. Fear of insanity 3, or we could say 4. Fear of insanity. He's got a turmoil, in his mind. Many and quick thoughts. And the intention of his state makes him believe that he is going to become insane now. This is the picture of Mancinella. It is a characteristic picture, but with very narrow range. Of course, primarily this is the psychological symptom, but this creates also and affects the whole psychological picture of the patient. We have anxiety, we have restlessness, we have irritability, we may have many things, but these are not characteristics, they are secondary symptoms. These are the primary symptoms. You will read the rest of the details at the Materia Medica, the classical miasmatic constitutional Materia Medica. Let's go to Coffea. Now, let's go first to Ignacia. We have talked about Ignacia. I will go very fast and say that the essence of Ignacia is when you have a psoric person, a psoric background, or maybe another background, a syphilitic background, and the person, mostly psoric, and the person that is psoric and close to natrum muriaticum, after many stressful factors, or after a love disappointment, or after a death of a close person, breaks into pieces and develops what we call emotional disappointment. And this creates an acute picture. And we have what we have explained when we've talked about Ignatia. It is a temporary picture lasting for days or weeks or a couple of months, mostly, and the person who was Natrun muriaticum may go and become Ignatia for a while and then turn back again to Natrun muriaticum. Or the syphilitic person, let's say a Valeriana, who developed Ignatia after certain conditions, after a love disappointment, for example, will have an Ignatia influence and then go back to Valeriana. This is the essence of Valeriana. You will read the psychological profile in previous lectures that I have talked about Ignatia and in the Materia Medica. Staphylos agria, coffea. Coffea cruda. What is the essence? We've got a person that is mostly an irritable person, but not necessarily. And when stressed by anxiety, night, staying late at night, night burden and without enough sleep, and being all the time at stressful factors may develop the insomnia and high level of functioning of the brain, which resembles to the picture of drinking great amounts of coffee for long. It resembles the proving, the toxification, the toxicology picture of too much coffee, too much caffeine. And this picture has to do with high mental functioning, working at very high. It is as if you have an engine, the engine of the car, that is, you press the gas or you hold it down continuously, and you've got the machine roaring, working in high level. Think of the brain that works at a high level all the time, all day and all night. Since he has so many high working state, he's got a very good memory, very good thinking, quick and many thoughts, and this creates insomnia, because in order to get to go to sleep and become asleep, you have to lower the function. If the function is not lowering, is not going down, you cannot sleep. And although you cannot sleep, and you've got restlessness to the body, and you also got the senses being very acute. That's why he cannot stand any kind of noise, either during the day or during the night on trying to get to sleep. So you have a person that before sleep, he is worse noise and he just can't sleep, can't go to sleep. If after some hours he goes to sleep, but it is a superficial sleep that will not make him good. After he wakes up, and although he has slept for a while, his mind is overactive, and the midday comes, noon comes, and he cannot sleep again. But in the beginning, he is not sleeping, he is not tired, and his mental functions are full. But if this goes on, then there is the second phase, the pathology phase C, where this is the B pathology phase. The pathology phase C, where we've got a person that becomes sleepy, cannot sleep, his mind is tired, but it is still functioning very high, his body is tired, but he cannot sleep. And he may sleep a little bit at noon, but then he wakes up and he is full of tension again. This makes him also irritable, very irritable, and anxious. If you have drunk a lot of coffee, then, and who hasn't done this, you will remember the picture. We have a differential diagnosis from Nux vomica. Nux vomica has a lot of burdens at her mind. She is very stressed because she has a lot to do and she can't cope up with it. A lot to do, jobs, works, things to be done. So she tries to go to sleep, but she cannot sleep because all these things, all these things that she hasn't done come into her mind. And she says, I have to do this, I have to organize that, I have to do the other thing. And then she is also worse noise, but she goes to sleep after some time, and then she wakes up at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and although she is tired, and although her brain function is not working well, she cannot sleep again, because the minute she wakes up, she starts thinking that a new day is coming, she has to go to work, she has to do things in the house, and she hasn't got refreshing sleep, but she cannot go back to sleep because she has to do these things. At the noon, if she has some time, she may go to sleep for a little while and then wake up and say, I have to do things, I must not sleep anymore. Argentum nitricum has so many quick thoughts and so many what ifs. What if this bad thing happens? What if that bad thing happens? That he may wake up and start thinking of this what if. Lachesis, because she is very much attached to her family and to children and to her husband, and always thinks how to manipulate them and how to do this or that. She thinks a lot about, not about things to do, but about her worries, about her worries, about family worries. And so she, because she also gets worse from sleep, she may wake up at 1 or 2 or 3 hours after going to sleep and start thinking of what her husband told her, of her husband that cheated her with another wife, of the children that don't have any work to do, of the children that are the fighting that she had with her children, and so on. Sulfur may wake up at 3 o'clock and start thinking about theoretical and philosophical matters. So, this is Coffea cruda, the essence and psychological profile of Coffea cruda. You will read the rest of the details in the Materia Medica. Now, let's go to Staph sagria. Staph sagria is, the essence of Staph sagria is the following. We've got a psoric person, a psoric submissive person, and then we've got the effect of a syphilitic mostly or dominant person, and suppressing the psoric submissive individual, and this creates a state of feeling of a state where he is very angry inside, very angry, but does not express it. No expression. The essence of Staph sagria is when you have a kettle, those kettles that cook by using the steam power, you put this kettle on the stove, on the electrical stove, and the water and the food inside boils, goes more than 100 degrees centigrade. Steam is created, and steam under pressure, great pressure. Some of this steam goes off by the valve in order not to have an explosion. So you have great steam, great anger, intense anger, but no expression of the anger. The valve is closed, or only a few amount of steam goes away. So, example, you may have a wife, a housewife, she has that, she's psoric and submissive, she has that syphilitic dominant husband that presses her all the time, suppresses her. She gets angry, he shouts at her, "Why did you do that? You should do it this way. I have told you 100 times not to do this," and so on. And she stays there, doesn't say a word. She is boiling inside from anger, She is boiling inside, but she says nothing. And then her husband leaves and she starts saying, he told me this inside her. He told me this and that. I should have told him and answered him this or that. And then he told me this. I should have answered this and that. And instead of doing the fight externally, outside, with the person that caused the fighting, she does this fantastic, imaginary fight inside her, with the person, but inside her. She may express a little bit her anger, but only very little. So she feels boiling from anger, she is up to the neck or to the head from anger, but she doesn't express it. It's a very suffering situation. And then, when this is the case, when you have plus anger but no expression, then the person feels, what does he feel? He feels suppressed. 3, 4. He feels in a dead end, that nothing will change, that she can't do anything. She is desperate, feeling in a dead end, feeling that there is no way out from this situation, and this makes her desperate. And she has this great amount of anger inside her. Be careful. Most of people today say that they are suppressed because of their job, because of their boss, because of their because of their partner in the family, because of their children, because. All people say that they are suppressed, they are feeling suppressed today. That conditions and situations suppress them. But you can prescribe Staphylococcus aureus only when there is a psoric submissive background, only when this is real, and only when she is up to the neck with anger but she doesn't express it. Only then you will prescribe Staphylococcus aureus. You will give it and she will get well very quickly, in a matter of hours or days, and then she is going to get well, or she is going to relapse again if the conditions that she is or he is facing are the same. And because she is submissive, he is submissive and psoric, it is not easy to get the burden, the dominance over her head. So many times she keeps coming back again and needing again and again Staphylococcus aureus. But we may have a person that is not psoric or submissive, and under very special conditions, if she has anger and is a dominant person, but she have to retreat, she will suffer this situation of getting angry but not being able to express it, while usually she does. And then for temporarily she would have a Staphylococcus aureus situation for some days or weeks, and if you give Staphylococcus aureus, she will also get well. but mainly we've got psoric submissive individuals. All this suppression brings anxiety, brings introversy, and so on. But the main thing is what I have told you. Cannabis indica. In the same way that the picture of coffee accruta resembles the proving of coffee, the overconsumption of coffee, the caffeine effect. In the same way, cannabis indica constitutional picture resembles the not the use of resembles the use, the effect of too much hashish, too much pot, too much weed, too much cannabis indica. But be careful. You've got a person that may develop this picture of cannabis indica from hashish, from cannabis indica, but this picture may develop from stress, psychological stress, most of the times. And then you have the essence that is quick thoughts that create confusion of the mind, a special kind of confusion. Most of the times, it's not, this picture, this constitution is not created by hashish. It's created by psychological stress. The mind gets tired, and while at normal condition of the mind, we've got the gas pedal and the brakes pedal. In cannabis indica, we don't have brakes. We only have the gas pedal pushed, and we have many and quick thoughts, the one after the other, a train of thoughts, all the time, all the day, that creates a confusion. What kind of confusion? The person feels as if in a dream, as if between sleep and awake state, awakened state. The person feels as if he has drunk a glass of alcohol. Not being drunk, a glass of alcohol, and becomes a little bit confused. The first stage of getting drunk. This is the confusion of cannabis indica. And it is accompanied by many, many and quick thoughts. Many people use hashish. But only some of them develop the acute picture of cannabis indica some minutes or hours after the use. Only some of them. Not all become like cannabis indica. They have some of the symptoms, but they not necessarily develop the full picture of cannabis indica. It depends on the person. And there are many chronic users. Only a few of the chronic users need cannabis indica as a homeopathic remedy. Most of them develop the acute picture for some minutes or hours after the use, but but when this goes away, they don't have the picture of cannabis indica all day in between using hashish. I have seen some users that are cannabis indica, and I have seen some rare cases where a person used hashish for the first time in his life, and although he didn't use it again, he was left with the picture, with the constitutional effect of cannabis indica for months or years. And after I have prescribed cannabis indica, he was well. Let me remind you of the layer of aconitum that may stay for years, rarely for years, after a frightful event. In the same way, we can rarely have a person that became under the influence of cannabis indica, the chronic influence, after once using hashish. Nevertheless, the most important factor that creates cannabis indica influence is the psychological stress, because of the many and quick thoughts. Cannabis indica has this extra symptom that hands are cold and wet at the same time. Another thing that characterizes cannabis indica is that he wants to be mostly alone or with one or two persons that are of his own kind, and is going away from people. He lives in his own world, and this world is the world of his thoughts. He is reserved because of his many thoughts. Now let's go to nitric acid. Nitric acid essence, we have a person that is so tired mentally and physically, so tired both mentally and physically, that he has no energy to the body and to the mind, and so he gets very irritable and cursing in order to preserve his energy. This is more true in the morning, when his sleep wasn't refreshing, unrefreshing sleep. So he gets up in the morning and nobody should talk to him. His wife or his children should not make the mistake to talk to him. or to deal with him. He wants hours before getting well, before waking up. So he's in that state, tired, sleepy, unrefreshed, no energy at all, ready to explode from anger if someone tells him something. So when his children or his wife tell him something, he gets furious and says, "Shut up, will you? Don't bother me, go away." He will not talk much. He will not talk for long. He's so furious that you stop, you let him alone. And he may start cursing very much and very in a rude way in order to make you shut up. You see, he has no energy. So he gets very angry and shouting and cursing, and he wants to be alone. He doesn't want much with people. This is a state that is produced by too much stress, psychological and physical stress. But you may have too much stress and develop the influence of nux vomica, or develop the influence of arsenicum, or develop any other kind of constitution. But if you have these characteristics, then it is nitric acid. It is a rare constitution under special conditions, not frequently found, and temporary. We have talked about sepia and psorinum, so I will not go into details. I will give you only the essence. We have a person that is psoric, mostly natrum reaticum. She is greatly suppressed by her husband, suppressed emotionally, sexually, and in all terms. And when suppressed, she loses her energy She is very tired physically and mentally, but mostly emotionally tired and disgusted. And so she's got this psoric, silent grief, aversion, sex, 3, tired, 3, and this is the essence. We've got a person that was suppressed, especially from her husband. It is a female constitution, very much suppressed, for years suppressed, emotionally disappointed, sexually disappointed, and she has that great lack of vital force, so she's tired physically and psychologically, and she develops that psoric silent grief with aversion, sex, 3, and tired, 3. Only occasionally she will become irritable and biting as to her talk to her husband in order to leave her alone. I will not go into details because we have talked about sepia. Psorinum, we have talked also about it. I will not go into details, I will say only the essence. It is predominantly a male constitution. You have that man that was disappointed, that has an emotional disappointment, like sepia, that comes from his wife or children most of the times, or from his job, or from his friends. And because he is psoric, very psoric, and submissive, he finds himself in a great emotional disappointment. He is psoric, so he doesn't react in order to get out of this situation, and he feels flat emotionally. Flat emotionally. He knows that he loves his children, but he cannot feel it. So he develops this psoric silent grief, and this makes him pessimist. 3, that he is going to jail for financial reasons. Although his work may not be so problematic, he thinks that he's going to be ruined. He's going to the poorhouse. He finds no joy in nothing.